Is Lisa Chee, and I'm from Manchester, and I wanted to really kind of like share with you how God has really impacted my journey in running several businesses, really. So I'm going to just try and share my screen, and then we will be able to talk more about it. Just 1 minute. Okay. Whilst I'm waiting for that to come on, let's have a show of hands. Who here already is in business and who is thinking about starting a business? So it'd be good just in the chat just to say, type 1 if you are already in business, and type 2 if you are thinking about starting a business. Cool. Yeah. Great. Fantastic. Okay. Thinking of starting a business. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a good mix in the room today, which is really, really great, because that gives me a chance to share my journey, but also some tips, and happy to answer any questions that you have, at the end. So let's crack on. Right, so today's topic is the woman that God uses in business. A little bit about myself is that I've been a Christian for many, many years. Probably you're talking when I was at uni, really, so a good couple of decades. And I remember when I was in Australia, specifically studying international business, was when I went to an Easter conference, and I only went because I was a student and I was hungry. And I remember the family there inviting me to come and have some food. And as a student, being a foodie, I can't turn down the offer of food. And that is when God met me, basically, at this Easter conference. And that is when I really experienced the presence of the Holy Spirit. The next thing that happened to myself was that I finished my degree in business. I then went to go work in finance in London. And at that point, realized that really this sort of career is not for me. I was in finance, and as you know, being a woman with glass ceilings, it's very, very hard to progress. But I always wanted to start, my own business. And so me and my sisters decided to come back to London, from London to Manchester, and open our first business. Now, we knew that we wanted to open something that where we could be involved with people, with food, and also the business side as well, because there would be other options. And so that is how we came up with the idea of starting a restaurant. Now, as you know, there are thousands and thousands of restaurants that basically, loads of competition. And so the way we differentiated ourselves was that we wanted to open a modern Chinese restaurant, meaning the interiors were very modern and minimalistic, with classical home-cooked Chinese food with a twist. So we did exotic cocktails based on the Chinese zodiac. And so we built this restaurant in 4 weeks. Now, in our early 20s, when we went knocking on all the banks' doors for funding, majority of them turned us down, because obviously from my and from there on, we kind of like have been doing quite a lot of projects, really. So it's been very, very busy. And I'm going to talk about the milestones in my business journey and my own personal journey with God, and where God has really protected me in the business as well, to take me and my family to where we are right now. So really, let's go back to the very beginning of how I got into food. This picture that you see here is a picture of my grandmother, Lily Kwok, and my mum and my uncle, Uncle Arthur, and my mum's called Mabel. And so my grandmother came over from Hong Kong in the 50s on a ship, and her story is very, very inspirational. She opened one of the first Chinese restaurants even before Chinatown in Manchester. And she was an amazing cook. She did this famous curry dish. So we still do my grandmother's curry sauce in our food businesses. And yeah, so she opened it in the 50s, and she was actually a maid for an English family. And in those days, it was very, very rare to kind of like bring your children over, especially when you're in service. And so the story goes is that when the family no longer needed her and the lady that she was looking after passed away, they left her a small lump sum of money. And with that, she used it to buy her first shop, which is in a small town called Middleton in Manchester. And from there, she started serving all the locals in Middleton and also the famous singers that were kind of like just on the cusp of getting famous, called the Beatles and Cliff Richard with her curry sauce. So this is the actual first premises that my grandmother had, and she actually was a single mom as well. So it's, if you do love reading or audiobooks, we do have our family story, which is published by Random House, and it's called Sweet Mandarin. So that is my roots, is from my grandmother and my mother. And I'm talking about the dynasty of the family. You know, I am the third generation in the restaurant business and the fourth generation in the sauce business, because my great grandfather used to manufacture soy sauce. He was from China and then moved to Hong Kong. I also did cookery school for many, many years for my customers. And it was them that drove me to kind of like co-write the cookbook. We've got 3 of them now. The first one's called Sweet Mandarin. The second one is called Dim Sum. And the third one is Street Food Odyssey of China. And each one of them have become Times bestsellers. And the last book won a Gourmand Award. I also wanted to kind of like touch on a little bit in terms of like what happened next on the journey. So we opened, and what happened was, as you know, with the restaurant business, you have to hire a team to help you. And within the first within the first 3 months of opening, the teams that we hired were much older than us. And these chefs that were male said to us, I want a pay rise. And I said to them, there's no way you're going to get a pay rise, because we firstly are a new business. And secondly, you know, we're pretty much up to our eyeballs in debt. So they said, right, if you don't give us a pay rise, we're going to walk out. And our first Christmas consisted of the whole team walking out on us, and we having to club together with friends, family, just to help get through that first Christmas. I guess I would say the first 3 years of the business was intensely hard. And I remember thinking, you know what, I don't think I can do this business anymore. I thought to myself, what are we doing? You know, it is so incredibly hard. I mean, we were just really, really treading water every day. And I even remember trying to apply to 100 jobs, you know, from my previous job to even a cleaning job. And every single application that came back rejected. And I remember God said to me very clearly, you are not to sell the business. You have to keep going. I was like, why? Because it's so hard. And at that point, we couldn't really afford the team. So we had to like learn how to do the business ourselves. So during those early years, you know, I was in the kitchen, prepping, cooking, buying the stock, trying to do training with any staff that I could pay whenever we had money. And I guess that lesson of grafting really helped, because in 2009, we got nominated to go on a TV show, which is this image here. I don't know if you recognize this dude here, but he's called Gordon Ramsay. And we got invited to go and cook on this competition where he was looking for Britain's best local Chinese restaurant. And you had to cook. It was a cooking competition. It wasn't just a talking competition. So you couldn't just boast how wonderful your restaurant was. You had to show the proof was in the food. And I remember that my competitors who were opposite us in the kitchen, the lady there, she was wearing high heels in the kitchen. So I knew that she wasn't really the chef. She was more the front of house, the more hostess with the mostess sort of thing. And so I remember being, presented with all this food to prep in a time frame for 50 diners. So you have to prepare 50 starters, 50 main courses, sides, and also 50 desserts, all from scratch, in a time frame for a cooking competition. And it was intense. They picked us up the night before. We finished service at 11 p.m. The taxi came at 12. We got into London for just before 6 in the morning. So we had a kip in the taxi. I said to the lady, can you get me a cup of tea and something to eat? I only had one bite and she said, come and try your apron on. The competition started. And it was really, really a blur, to be honest with you. Now, I don't watch TV because I'm always working, but what happened was we did the competition and, really through God's grace and God's strength, because I was pretty shattered after that competition, was that we won the competition. We beat, 10,000 restaurants to win the accolade for Britain's best local Chinese restaurant. Now, the thing is, right, when you do this TV show, you don't actually see the results until later on, because they air it much later. So obviously we just trundled on with our restaurant, and from there on, one day, probably I'll say a good 3 to 4 months later, we saw the impact of the TV show. I remember at lunchtime, we only had about 3 to 4 tables regularly. And that one lunch, we probably had about 50 to 60 covers. And it was crazy because it was only just like a very, very skeleton team. So at that point, I thought to myself, okay, well, thank God I can cook. Thank God I've got, a little bit of a skeleton team to keep going. But then also I had to have wisdom from God, because I thought to myself, I'm nowhere going to cope with, cooking so many orders in such a short space of time. So we did sittings. So we did an early sitting, we did a late sitting. And I remember every lunchtime we were full. And at that point we decided, because all the stock was being eaten by lunch, by nighttime we had nothing left in the fridge. So we had to go buy stock again, prep again, and it was all sold again every day. What happened was we decided to close lunch so I could have a little bit of a time to prep the food and also arrange all the bookings. And I remember the phone did not stop ringing. I mean, some people go like, I would love to have more sales. Who in business here would like to have more sales? But my next question is, could you cope with the pressure if you had 100 calls in an hour? It was that intense. That's what we faced. And obviously being a quiet restaurant when we first entered this competition to an immensely busy restaurant. I mean, we used to have queues of people coming outside the door. And I remember it was 4 o'clock when we opened and my hands were shaking just before we opened the door, because they would just stampede in like it was free for all. And yeah, you either make or break in that sort of pressure. Now, we learned a lot from doing this F word, because number one, it taught me that actually, if you're a business owner, you have to be confident in your product or your business or your food. And I was confident in the cooking and the flavors and the sauces. I also believed in, all those years of grafting was concentrating as well on what I do best, my zone of genius. I guess that's what people say. I'm not a trained cook, but I love cooking. I've been cooking from the age of 11, and I love experimenting in the kitchen. But most importantly, I understand what people like to eat, and that is what drives business, I think, for my experience. We then also learned to listen to what customers liked as well and what they didn't like. And one of the things that we tapped into was there was a huge trend for gluten-free Chinese, meaning people were struggling to eat Chinese food because they had gluten in them. If you are not sure what gluten is, what it means is if you have a normal Chinese with, say, normal soy sauce or flour, that will upset someone's tummy and they will be very, very ill and poorly. So we created our own sauces that were not using those sort of ingredients. And so from there, we managed to gain a lot of new customers who were in this celiac and gluten-free category. We had a regular customer called Jim. Now, if you have any customers that are your regulars or your clients that you work with again and again, you look after them very, very well. And my regular called Jim, he would come every Friday for his tea. And his mom was actually a celiac, and she was from Cambridge. So she would drive up from Cambridge, come to Manchester, have a meal with us, and she loved it because the food was safe. She could enjoy the food if she hadn't had Chinese for like over 10 years. And one day she said to her son, I would love Lisa to bottle the sauces, because we did these range of sauces. We started off with 3 flavors first. It was barbecue, sweet chili, and sweet and sour. And yeah, so because Jim was a graphic designer who worked for the likes of Tesco's and people like that, he created a label. I'm going to show you the sauces. Let me see. That's our food, just to show you from the cookbook. This is just like the milestones, which I can go back in a minute. But these were our sauces that we did. And so Jim made me this label. I don't know if you can see, but that's my face. And obviously I'm a bit older now. So, so, I'm preserving these labels because it's got my youth on them. I'm a bit older now. But anyway, yeah, so Jim made us these labels, and we had the first 3. We had barbecue, sweet chili, and sweet and sour. Those were our 3 range that we had first. And I remember saying to when the labels came, he said, right, you've got to do your part of the bargain now and make these sauces in a bottle. And I remember, praying about it, God, if you really want this to work, you've got to give me a sign. And God actually gave me double blessing on these bottles. So these actual bottles that you see, I ordered the first 50, and I got sent a free pack of 50. And I thought, wow, that's definitely the sign I need to make sure that this worked. And we tested the market by taking it to a corporate client of ours, which was a bank, funnily enough, who turned us down. And I had the first sample of sauce with no label, no packaging, no sales pitch, nothing, no banners. And it was just purely on a taste test. And I think we sold it at £3 a bottle, and we sold over 100 bottles. I think that was the first 100 I got, those bottles. And they were gone within the first hour. I thought, wow, that's a good sign. Something's somebody likes them, obviously, you know what I mean? And from there, we then went and got some help to get some NPD help, meaning new product development, and also get the packaging and the labeling right, and also the shelf stableness. Obviously, I'm not a manufacturer by trade, but I had to learn how to make these bottles of sauces to retail ready for our customers. So that's what they look like as well. Now, let me go back to the story again. Now, the other thing that we did was, from that time from F-word to when we launched the sauce range, it was extremely, extremely busy. And we had another customer say, why don't you go on a show called Dragon's Den? If you've never heard of it, it's on BBC, and it's where an entrepreneur will pitch their idea to 5 multimillionaires. And if they like it, they will back you. And if they don't, they'll just basically rip it to shreds. So we were thinking, oh crumbs, we're going to be totally ripped to shreds because we haven't even got a business. It's just an idea. So we went on this Dragon's Den show. And I remember we just used prick stick just to stick the labels on. And I was praying to God, please don't let the labels peel off on TV. It'll be embarrassing. Thankfully, we survived it. And after grilling for about 2 hours, we actually got the funding and the backing from 2 dragons. But before that, again, with TV, what you don't see is that we do a lot of legwork before that. So we already got a deal with Sainsbury's when that was launched. We also went to go do international trade shows. We got our first deal with Russia. And then we got into quite a lot of retail stuff after that. I think we hit about 1,000 retail stores, 1,000 plus probably, and in 15 countries, which was really, really by God's grace, you know. I mean, I can't open the door, but God can, you know. Then in between that, we also started writing our cookbooks because we were doing cookery school, and also juggling all these multiple businesses. And I guess, you know, one of the things that I love doing is writing recipes, because obviously being a foodie, I love, you know, I love to make sure that the recipes are spot on, but also to kind of like make sure that they are simple to follow for my customers. So, you know, the journey of the early days of grafting in the kitchen on my own has led me to take me around the world cooking for people, cooking on massive stadiums up to 1,000 people. Cooked on a cruise ship for about 6,000 people with a brigade of I think it was 500 chefs, something like that. Yeah, and I was leading the team, so it was pretty awesome to do that, following my recipes. And then I guess the next funny milestone that happened was that we got awarded this thing from the Queen because she loved our sauces. So one day we got an order from the Queen for our sauces, and I nearly fell off the chair because I thought this is a hoax. But no, it was for Buckingham Palace, and it got sent out. Didn't hear anything for a while. And the next minute we got a letter saying your sauces are very special. And then the next thing that happened was we got awarded this MBE, come down to London and you can bring 2 guests with you. So we brought my mom and my dad, and we drove through the gates at Buckingham Palace, and it's one of the most incredible, surrealist days. And I really have to thank God for that, because, you know, God has been using us to cook for people, to pray for the food, to pray for all the VIPs in their meetings, pray for, you know, any massive events that's been going on. Like we've cooked for so many prime ministers and all the kind of like G20 kind of like leaders, and other billionaires and people that you can't even imagine. I mean, I don't see them as them sort of titles. I just see them as people that need to eat. And I believe that, you know, I'm there to serve them, really, because end of the day, food is what unites people. And this previous picture, let me show you this one. If you can see, this was one of the funniest stories actually that I'll share with you. And once again, it was a God moment again. We decided to export our sauces back to China. So we are a UK Chinese sauce manufacturer exporting our sauces back to China, a bit like selling ice to the Eskimos or coal to Newcastle, okay? So it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but we did the deal, and we got into all the press in China, Hong Kong, you name it, because obviously it was a very, very hoo-ha story, quite tongue-in-cheek. And we also had cookbooks as well that were published in China. And so the number 1 and 2 of China had heard about these girls from Sweet Mandarin. This is my sister Helen, and that's me. And they went, I want to try this Sweet Mandarin. I want to know what's so special about them. So he was doing a visit with the Prime Minister back then called David Cameron, this guy here. And what happened was he said, I want to have lunch and try Sweet Mandarin food. So we got invited to go and cook for him and some other big wigs, which I can't really remember the names, but I saw the list and I pretty much like, oh my God, I'm pretty scared, you know, because there's some really, really big names here that I'm cooking for. And also this meal can either make or break someone's trade deal. So anyway, we cooked for them. And then this is the second in command in China back then. And he said, you know, your food was amazing. Thank you for cooking for me. And I'd love you to come to Beijing. So all I can say is, you know, God is really, really faithful. He's amazing. You just never know where God's going to take you. And we got prophesied the verse Jeremiah 29:11. God's got plans to prosper you, not harm you. That was even before I started the business in London when I was working in finance. So you're talking, you know, a good 15 plus years ago that I got prophesied that, and it's come to pass now, which is amazing. So that's a little bit of the milestones. Let me just go back to the slide. Oops. Yeah, so I've done that. And then, yeah, so that's kind of like the journey so far of what God has done really in business for myself and my sister. It's really kind of like restoring the family name and also kind of keeping the legacy going at Sweet Mandarin. Now, as you know, in 2020, something drastically happened to everyone and the world, which was COVID. And we, unlike other businesses, had to close. So we decided to kind of like, rethink and do something that we could do to help the community. So we started cooking for the frontline people, really, people in the Nightingale hospitals and all the staff members in the hospital that were working tirelessly, teachers as well, that were looking after the kids. So we did what we could to keep things going in our city. The other thing that I mentioned was that, I forgot to mention was that before that, I remember praying to God saying, I would love to get married and, start a family. And I guess God again has answered my prayers. And if anyone is in that position where they're thinking, right, how do you juggle business, family, children, or kids? I didn't know how to do it, but God has really given me help and wisdom. So this is my husband, Josh. This was when we were dating. And then obviously we got married quite quickly. And this is my daughter now called Kimmy. So her nickname was called Chee, because my new surname is Chee and her full name is Kimberly. So we shortened it to Kimchi. And she loves noodles, which is where I got the next business idea from, which is kimchi noodle, you can see down there. So then I also loved helping people that wanted to start a business, because during lockdown, as you know, a lot of people were stuck at home. They didn't know what to do with themselves. But also their businesses were just basically, having to be forced to be closed. So you either had to pivot or you would have to find a completely new business. And so I created a thing called the startup coaching service, where I was helping a lot of people in business, also people that were in employment, that were furloughed, that wanted to take a side hustle to a business. So I did that as well. So these were the two things that I help most people do that are struggling when they are thinking about starting their own businesses. They don't know the next steps, or they've already started the business, but they don't have to kickstart the sales. So I help them do these two aspects. So if anyone does want to chat with me, this is what I kind of help people to do in the startup coaching realm. I sort of handpick my clients because I like to make sure I give them a personal service to make sure that they do, not just get the education, but they do have the kind of like the action to do it. The hardest thing in business really is executing the idea. Even if it's kind of like you're in business, but you're flat, it's stagnant, is that how do you get to the next level? And that's what I help a lot of people do. So over the lockdown, I've helped about 100 entrepreneurs do this, which has been phenomenal. And I've given lots of free time to lots of charities to do this as well. Now, next chapter that I'm also very passionate about is my kimchi noodle, which is dedicated to my daughters. I'm hoping to pass that one down to my daughter with my recipes. So we do these boxes, these noodle boxes, and we do these iced teas, like a signature range. And the plan for this one is to look into license the business and also take it to retail from all my experience that I've done with Sweet Mandarin. So it's very, very exciting. And really, there's really mainly 7 things that I've learned from doing these businesses over 20 years, really. The first one is to be very, very clear on what is the business and the business model. They say 80% of success comes from knowing who you are, your goals and what do you want in the business. So if you're not clear, then how can your customer understand what it is that you're offering? The other point, second point, is to be confident in what you're offering, whether it be product or service. And that's really from gaining experience. You must do the work in business, because at the end of the day, you are the boss and the buck lies with you. And so I like to learn, I like to then do, and I like to teach, which is what I'm doing right now. The third thing is concentration. In business, you have to concentrate fully on the project and focus on one thing. And I love making lists every day. and I focus on that one list, and I get the job done. So then I can keep moving the needle forward, and that's very important in business. You can get very distracted, especially with social media. You can read so many things, you can join so many programs, join so many challenges, go on loads of workshops, but if you don't actually execute an action, nothing happens. The other thing is constraints. A lot of people think that in business you need to have a lot of investment, a lot of money to start businesses. My question to you is, do you really need that much money to start business? Is there another way that you can generate the money to start that business in a different format? So identifying the one thing that will make the biggest impact on your business, and also your income to double as well. So looking at strategies, I love strategy. So that's what I help most of my clients do, is find strategies bespoke for their business that I've learned from my own business. I also do continuous learning. So I like to read a lot. I like to kind of like study other people's businesses, and also reflect as well. In business, it's very important to take time out to reflect, to see what's working and what's not working. I think a lot of things that people don't realize when you start business is to have commitment. If you are not committed to your business, it's not a job. It's not like your boss will tell you, right, can you do X, Y, and Z? In business, you need to be innovative. You need to be committed to keep improving your businesses, listen to the clients, and also kind of making sure that you deliver on what it is that you're offering. And I think the other thing, the last thing, is courage. It's not just courage in a sense of like starting, but it's courage to continue in business when those times get tough, and also surrounding yourself with the right people as well as the Word of God. And I certainly have used a lot of scripture to help me get through those dark days in business. And yes, it's just, I know I kind of like rattled on quite quickly, but really the secret of success is just to keep going in business, and also being very, very clear on what you're offering, and also getting all your foundations right before you start scaling. I hear a lot of people, especially in the startup coach, want to go from, an idea to I want to conquer the world in 3 years. Well, it's possible, but then again, you really need to sacrifice a lot, and whether people can do that, it's a different question. So I guess the kind of like thing I would like to just end with is, here are my details. I would love you to kind of keep in touch with me if you do have any questions, or if I can connect you to anyone in my network. End of the day, business is not meant to be lonely. I believe that the people that you meet right now, you never know where they're going to end up. And it's something that's very, very exciting in business. It never stands still. So you're always going to be connecting with new people that will open doors for you, people that you never even thought of to do business with, But the most exciting thing about business is doing it on your terms. I think that's really, really important. You've got to do something that you love. You can't just copy someone and think that it's going to magically start ramping up revenue, because people can discern if you're passionate about that business or not. And yes, you can hire the best heads and the best team to make that business sing for you. But at the end of the day, you are the leader of your business, and you have to lead it, with integrity and your values. And so I would love you to connect with me. And I do have something to share with you if you are in business. I've got a little ebook that I've written called 7 Ways to Be Visible Online in Your Business, which I've written. I'm happy to send it out to you for free. So if you would like it, please just drop me an email, and I can and put WOM in the subject, and I'll send it to you with a little invite of something. Okay. So if you've got any questions, I'd love to answer them for you right now, because I think we've got some time spare in our breakout room. You're welcome, everybody. Thank you for the comments. I feel the love. Right, the question. I may not be in your line of business, but can you coach someone who's interested in business? Absolutely. That's what I do in the startup coach, actually. So I've got two prongs. I do complete new beginners, meaning people that are employees that want to become entrepreneurs. I teach you the steps. And the second thing is that if people are already started a business, but they just can't get it off the ground, meaning, you know, a business shouldn't be a grind. It should be a part of your life, but also kind of like bringing you revenue and also, you know, covering your income. We also work on strategies to do that as well. So that's what I do. I do quite a lot of one-to-ones, but I handpick who I want to work with just because my time is quite precious. But yes, if you want to send me an email and let's have a chat and see if we can see if we're the right fit, that's definitely the best thing. But my link, if you can see the slide, lisa@lisachee.com. If you can email me, that's the best way to get in touch with me. And if you want to follow my pages, it's Kimchi Noodle for my latest foodie project, and also Startup Coach for my coaching services. But that's where I really kind of like just give you like information about starting businesses and business ideas. But I also coach foodie entrepreneurs as well. And yeah, just, you know, even if you've got nothing, even if there's no parallel or synergies, please do keep in touch, because you, like I said, you never know who I know and who you know that we can connect with in the future. And that's what it's all about. It's all about building relationships, especially, you know, with God in the center. You know, God really does open many, many doors, as I've demonstrated from my journey. And the last thing I'd like to add is that God speaks to me in a lot of dreams. I don't know how God speaks to you. He speaks to me in the word, but also speaks to me in dreams. So I remember that in most of my deals that I did for my businesses, God would give me visions and dreams of who I should be partnering with in business and who I shouldn't. And also he protected me from deals that pretty much were dud deals, meaning I would go bankrupt. So I've been protected quite a lot. And yeah, I forgot to mention one part of the story as well when I was on the F word, was that in that 10 months, we paid off the entire debt. And that was really, you know, I praise God for that, because if we didn't pay off that debt now, especially with COVID, we probably would have gone bust as well, like a lot of restaurants, because no way could you just magic up the, you know, all the expenses you have to run an expensive business like a restaurant. So thank you so much for listening. If you've got any questions, please, if you feel comfortable, feel free to drop them in the chat. If not, just drop me an email and we can schedule some time to read those questions of yours. Oh, right. Let me find the correct link for you. You can find Lisa Chee, Startup Coach. That should be the one. Let me find it for you, okay? And then I will. Yeah, I think if you look for that, Lisa Chee Startup Coach, you should be able to find me. Oops, how do I do the? Found it, brilliant. Okay, yeah, I've got, yeah, just like the page, and like I said, I'll be posting more on there later with more help for people, because, you know, I really encourage people to think about entrepreneurship as a career as well, because it gives you so much freedom. You know, it's not the 9 to 5. You create your own business, and you create your own terms as well. So yeah, please do you know, keep in touch. And if you, like I said, if you've got any questions, I'm here right now to answer them as best I can. You're welcome, Fola. You're welcome. Yes, God bless you too, everyone. And don't forget, if you want the free ebook, just drop me an email and I'll get my team to send it to you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. No problem. Oh, how do you find which area of business to go into? I think this one you have to do a bit of soul searching, this question. You have to find out what you love to do. And, you know, do you want to do an online business, an offline business? Do you want to start it from scratch? Do you want to do a network marketing business where it's got systems already? Do you want to buy a franchise? I mean, that is a massive question. That how do you find which area of business to go into? That really has to do some soul searching. Any last questions, guys, before the breakout room finishes? I mean, if anybody's interested in a workshop on generating ideas and coming up with ideas for a business or choosing one, I would be happy to host one for you for free. But let me know, and I've got some great ideas that I can help guide you to come to those answers. So if you are interested, like the Facebook page, and I'm happy to share that with you as well. Thank you.
I was going by the water machine, and somebody just sensed that I was a Christian. They just sensed it in the atmosphere. Things like that happen. I kid you not. All right.
Like if you want to give a good example, let's say as Pastor Grace is our mother in the Lord in the church, she will not tell me that every woman in the church are easy people.